Hello and welcome to the FSF Podcast. This is the show that is made by nerds for nerds. So welcome to our temporary nerdery, which is under construction. So that's why it's all blurred out, because you don't want to see the construction. It's just construction and it's dusty and dirty. Anyway, enough about that. Very excited to have a very cool guest with us today. She's a longtime and distinguished voice actor that has been featured in games like Mass Effect, Fallout, Destiny, Star Wars Jedi Survivor, at Starfield. You've seen her or heard her in X-Men 97, The Legend of Vox Machina, regular show. Okay, KO, Let's Be Heroes. There's so much more. Honestly, there's so many cool things that Courtenay Taylor has been a part of, and we are just stupidly excited to have her with us. So, Courtenay, welcome to the FSF Podcast and all of our insanity.
Thank you so much. That was so smooth. I'm like the FSF Podcast. I can't even say the name, but it
takes a little practice and like 4 years of saying it, but yeah.
Sure.
Well, previously our show was known as the Funny Science Fiction Podcast, and I had a separate podcast as well called Pop Culture Addicts. I was doing the two shows at the same time, and they were basically the same show, except for this one was all sci-fi, this one was all pop culture, and I was like, this is really stupid. We're going to combine the two. We renamed it, and now we're the FSF Popcast.
Nice.
Which seemed smart at the time until people couldn't say Popcast, and now it's like, well, it is what it is. We already got the domain and the website and the emails.
Podcast.
Yeah, exactly. So if you can say the
exactly.
You're going to be
Thanks
just
for
fine.
watching the podcast.
Exactly.
Trained professional, baby.
Absolutely. Love it. All right. So one of the things, Courtenay, that we always love to find out about our guest, for a couple reasons. Number one of my other previous shows was a show where I talked about people coming through different things in their life. It was called Focused on Forward, where I found that I love to hear people's backstories and how they got to be who they are and what makes them tick, why they do the things that they do. So in the story, and plus I'm also a massive nerd, and who doesn't love a good origin story? So in the story of Courtenay Taylor, what got you here? What made you decide that A, I want to be an actor, or B, I want to be a voice actor and, do the things that I do?
It's funny. I wouldn't probably have been able to answer that question. Well, I have more clarity on it now. I can say, looking back on all the things that I have done in my life, they've all sort of created this weird web that's all kind of come together. So when I was just a kid with, parents from different countries, and I would make fun of their accents. And I lived in Australia when I was a kid. And I think that probably made me aware of, on some level, about accents and how people speak, and because I was there and then I came back here, getting teased for not talking like everyone else both ways. I think that probably on like a cellular level did something. And then I was just always a mimic when I was a kid, and I didn't do acting classes until I was really like in college. I thought it would be like an easy A, and I needed to, pump up my GPA, and it was not an easy A. And people had always said, like, you should be an actor, because I talk a lot, and I was a bit of a show off as a kid. But yeah, I just ended up taking some classes and I really liked it, but I didn't have any like proper training. So I sort of reverse engineered it by going and taking classes with extended education stuff. And in the last couple of years of college, taking a bunch of acting classes. When I was finished with that, I went to ACT, American Conservatory Theater in San Francisco. They did a really amazing summer training congress, which was sort of like their 2-year program condensed into, I think it was like 8 or 9 weeks of like Shakespeare and movement and voice and speech and all this stuff. And the classes that I hated the most were voice and speech and movement, because we had to act like we were animals and, things like that. And which is amazing, because of course those are the two things that I use the most now. And I went to apply for a school in New York to continue my education, and at my audition, the man who I was auditioning for, the representative said I had a terrible voice, that I, had vocal damage, and that I would never be able to project to the back of a theater. He wouldn't accept my application unless I got medical clearance. And so I went back to my voice and speech teacher, and she changed my life by saying, I think you should try their classes, voiceover classes. You could try. I think you have a cool voice, and give it a whirl. And I was like, okay, because I love taking classes. And so I went and took this class, and it just changed my life. It was all commercial class. It was,
Okay.
video games were pretty nascent at that point. And a lot of people don't like commercials, but I just loved getting behind the mic and getting to tell a story. And I had always read aloud to my mom in the car, different books, because we lived really far from school. And so there was always a long, long ride home. And I just mimicked people. And so then later on, as I got older, when I was, doing these classes and stuff, I was also working at a boxing gym. So I was sparring and doing boxing stuff where I learned how to throw a punch. And I had fought when I was a kid, like in school, but like all this like sort of body work of like getting into
Sure.
your body, placing things in your body, taking impacts, delivering damage. So that all kind of was a nice little component that I ended up using later as well. And I was like a punk rock kid, so I feel like that also contributed to my love of certain types of characters, and
Okay.
brought something a little bit different to my life experience. Brings something a little bit different than maybe other folks who studied since they were kids and are trained singers and stuff like that. It's a little unconventional, but I've learned to kind of look back on all these things and appreciate how they all work together and be grateful for it.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. So you mentioned that, not a lot of people like to do commercial work at the time, but you were liking it. Do you remember one in particular where you went, this ain't so bad. I think I could do this. This is a nice gig.
100%. I actually decided pretty early on in taking these classes that this is what I wanted to do.
Okay.
And so the woman who ran the classes was a casting director as well. And so while I was taking class with her, she brought me in for a commercial, my very first audition. And it was a commercial for a hospital in San Francisco. And it was basically, the script was a love letter to San Francisco. And that is my hometown. I love it dearly. And so I just got to talk about the city that I grew up in, and I booked the commercial. I booked my first audition, and I was like, this is a sign.
Oh, that's very cool.
And so, yeah, it was just beautiful talking about how, they made a city out of sand, and a park out of a pond, and, just the way that San Francisco had come together. And it really taught me about commercials, about really finding the thing that you love in the commercial, right from the get-go.
Very cool. Okay. So, what we've talked with so many voice actors over the time, and I've really grown to respect you voice actors more and more because of the ability, like you said, to mimic this voice, to do this thing. And I especially kills me when, I talk to somebody and I find out they played two characters in the same show and they're talking to themselves basically because the dialogue required them to jump back and forth between voices. But I also find that there's a lot of misconceptions out there about who voice actors are, what voice actors do, especially since COVID in 2020. Everybody's like, yeah, they're just at home with bonbons and, sitting in their PJs, which, I know does happen from time to time. You get to work in your PJs. But and then if you do, more power to you. I think that's fantastic. I'm and almost slightly jealous. But what would you say is the biggest misconception about voice acting to the general public?
Well, I try not to work in my pajamas. I try and at least put on like workout clothes so that I get out the house. And I don't love working from home. Actually, people think that's really great, but it's time management, self-starting, actually, not getting a lot of the joy. I love being directed. And so,
Okay.
not being able to go into my agency anymore and have somebody listen and give me feedback on what I'm doing or more information. It's very isolating to work from home doing this kind of stuff that was already isolating in the first place. Right. So,
Right.
but I think the biggest misconception is that it's easy. And just like, talking, one day I will meet Chris Rock and I'm going to give him a flick for saying that, voice acting is easy. You just talk, because he's Chris Rock, right? And he's being paid to be Chris Rock and to have his sense of humor. And he's not doing a lot of variety, right? So I
Right.
think
He is Chris
sometimes
Rock in everything he does.
exactly. And so there's this, you see one lane of voice acting, which is I get hired to be myself, or I get hired to do my voice. And I have this very distinct signature voice that everybody loves. And it's it's just like an on-camera acting, right? They're like Tom Cruise, and not to say that he doesn't have any range, because he does, but Tom Cruise gets hired because he's Tom Cruise, right? And not every actor has that experience. And Tom Cruise is also very good at what he does. I'm not saying, and Chris Rock is very good at what he does, but they get chosen because people like their brand, people like what they do. And then there's this other path of, how flexible can you be? The people who can do 27 million voices and impressions and things like that, who I am, also I'm in awe of those people. And then there's kind of the middle area where I can only speak for myself, but I think I started out because I had a particular sound. I was kind of relying on that. And then as I got more into voice acting, that I realized that you really, trends change in animation, in games, in commercials. There are different styles, just like on camera acting. There's, the equivalent of, just because you're a great sitcom actor doesn't mean you're going to be a great dramatic actor, and vice versa.
Correct.
Like,
Yeah.
Or a theater
Different skill
actor
set.
versus a television actor. It's a completely different skill set. The net of it, right, is breaking down a scene, figuring out what doing the analysis of the material, which is key across all of it. But there are very specific technical things that are required. And while you may get lucky, and certainly it was, a long time ago, it was easier. There were far less people. You may get lucky and get a few jobs, but if you want to do this, you do have to innovate. You do have to always be learning. I've been doing this for a really long time now, and I still take classes. I still coach with people. I'm still always trying to gather information, because once you get into the booth, you don't have a lot of time. You don't have, you don't have a day on the set to walk around and kind of think about your character, or 6 weeks of rehearsing this play. It's, you're in there and we got 4 hours to get this done, maybe 2, depending on what the project is. So both from an acting perspective of being able to break down the material, make really quick choices, and also be authentic in your dialect choices and your physical choices, to have all of those acting skills and tools in your back pocket very quickly. And if you don't have that, you might get a job, and then I've started directing games a little bit, and nobody's going to give you 12 takes. Right. If you're new, I say to people all the time, like, you have to be competitive. If you put out a demo reel, you have to be competitive, because if they call you in and you can't maintain a voice for 4 hours, if it's a video game, or an accent, they are going to write it down and not going to hire you again. So
Sure. Yeah.
treat it with respect, treat it with love, and always be learning, because this is a really competitive business. Every day it gets more competitive.
Okay. I think that's excellent advice.
And also, we don't have any bonbons. I don't have bonbons anywhere. I had some poppy sticks and I ate them.
Yeah. Yeah, bonbons. Yeah, I haven't had those in a while.
No,
I think my wife
they
has,
don't
but
give them
I'd
to
have to
us.
ask her.
Yeah,
That's rude.
I know. It's
That's rude.
milk, right? They're like ice cream bonbons, so
I
probably
think so.
also
Yeah.
not great to eat. Not great to eat
As
before
you're
you get in
trying
the
to do,
booth.
yeah, try to do some voices.
Yeah.
It's great if you're trying to say FSF podcast, but probably nothing else. The yeah. Uh, so one of the things I always love when I look at people's resumes is all the different nerdiverses that they have been able to hang out in, and you have been in some really cool stuff. We mentioned in the outset, like you've dipped your toes into Star Wars and Vox Machina, Marvel stuff, which I didn't mention in the beginning, but that's all over your resume too. There's some Marvel's Avengers, and I think it was Avengers Assemble, if I remember correctly. Destiny 1 and 2, there's Fallout, there's Mass Effect, all these different places where it was honestly one of those things. As I was going through your resume, I was like, because originally when I reached out, I have to be honest, most familiar with you because of Destiny and Destiny 2. Big Destiny player back in the day. And I was like, oh, she's Amanda Holliday. Oh, I want to talk to her. So yeah. But then as I was going through your resume, it was kind of like, oh boy, there's all these other games and things that I have played, shows that I have watched. And it always makes me wonder, though, I see this very wide cross section of characters that you have played. And I always this is another question I always like to ask voice actors. Is there one character, like if you look back through your resume of characters where you look at them and go, that's the clone that was closest to my personality. That was the one that was easiest for me to play.
Oh gosh. I mean, it's hard to say because there's a lot of characters where I've just gotten to show up and, sort of be me, but as a mom, or me, but as a,
Sure.
reporter, or things like that. So I felt most emotionally connected, considering the heavy lifting. I would say that I felt like Jack from Mass Effect was really easy. As far as, not easy is not the right word, simpatico in a lot of ways. Okay. I think, and also, she's a character that I worked on for a while. So it's definitely, when you get, more than a couple of sessions with something, you do get to, dig in a little bit more. But all things considered, I think that even though her background, all of these things were really heightened, I did feel very much like I could relate to her way of being in the world. Some of the things that had happened to her and her reaction to trauma really resonated with me. As a sort of, the best defense is a good offense,
Okay.
And so I felt like I lived quite a bit of my younger, teenage years and stuff, really kind of relating to that. And having, there's something about, like, I don't know. I always had sort of the image of, like, because when I was a kid, my mom always says, she used to tell me, like, we lived in San Francisco. We had floor heaters. They have these grates, right? So the heat comes up through the hardwood floors, and they have these metal grates, and they get really, really hot. And, I was like a toddler, and my mom would be like, don't touch, and because she would see me, like, sticking my hand out to see always, like, and I always had to know, like, how hard is this going to be? How bad is this, and to see for myself. And then to kind of be like, yeah, I faced that down. And I felt like Jack had touched a lot of hot, and, was able to, somehow that, like, made her stronger. And I just really related to that. Obviously other stuff, other than floor heaters, but.
Sure. Yeah, no, but I get the analogy. And that makes sense.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like if you like, when somebody punches you in the face, and not everybody probably can relate to this, but when someone punches you in the face, one of two things happen. You either, the pain is so intense and the shock, that you cry, right? You sort of your body almost like starts to eject tears, and you sort of are
Yep.
frozen,
Can confirm.
or you like the veil comes down and you attack, right?
Yeah.
And so I think that I related very much to that second option when I was younger, and
All right.
I try not to get punched in the face anymore.
There you go.
Now,
Perfect.
as an adult, but I was I was good to go when I was younger. So
No, but that's good. I do like the analogy of the floor heater, because it's the danger, and how close can I get to the danger without having the danger affect me, or what's my response to that danger going to be. And I like that you were able to take that and then work that into your own work, and being able to see through your character's eyes how they maybe this is how that they would navigate a situation or handle something. So yeah, I think that it's a really good analogy, and for me, it makes a whole lot of sense.
I
But
feel
I can
like
also,
people who are in a lot of pain oftentimes need to touch pain to kind of, I always like, bloodletting is not a very like attractive term, but it's like that, it's almost like those like steam cookers, and when you unscrew the top they let out a little bit of steam, and I think sometimes that touching the hot somehow does that, reminds you you're alive.
I'll go with that. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and I will also confirm the analogy of what happens when you get punched in the nose, because I've had both ways happen. Instant tears and
Same.
instant I must destroy you. So
Yes. And so when they're like, she says, "I will destroy you," I'm like, cool.
yeah, absolutely. All right, so you talked about Jack, and how you're able to navigate through her because of your own past experiences, and so that might have been a little easier for you to be simpatico with your own personality. On the contrary, though, is there a character that was so diverse from who you are that it took you a hot minute to kind of center yourself into that character and say, okay, I can do this, I can be this person or this character?
I mean, I feel like it's not God. There's been plenty, because I've played some really cool, slick characters, and that is totally not me. So like Ada Wong in Resident Evil is so cool. I think um, I think I ran up against that, more often when I was younger, and I didn't really get that, like, sort of referencing the commercials thing. The reason I love commercials is because I love finding what I love about them, right?
Right.
And like, maybe it's the feeling that you're having about the thing. Um,
Okay.
and yes, maybe it's detergent, but whatever. But it's, you're enjoying the feeling, or you're giving someone else the feeling. You want someone else to join you in this feeling. And I think I didn't apply that as much. Now I'm like, oh, you just have to go, you have to find the thing that you love, right? And there are going to be situations where uh, you're going to have to do substitution work, but the feelings are legitimate, right? It could be that, your kid has been kidnapped, but have you ever lost your dog? Um, it's just, so learning to find things in my own life that I could draw upon to, I say, like in Fallout 4, she's got a kid, and she's, um, heartbroken, and the whole game is her trying to get her son back. And I don't have kids. I have a stepdaughter, but at the time I didn't have kids. And I was really like,
Okay.
what will I do? Especially when the other person, the male player character has kids. So I was just like, ugh. But I used substitution, and that was a really great example of of trying to find something in my own life. And then I think when I was voicing KO from OK KO, Let's Be Heroes, I felt like I didn't do a lot of kids stuff when I started out.
Okay.
And as I progressed in my career, I've now started doing kids shows in animation and kid friendly games and stuff like that. And with KO, it took me a second to realize that actually, he's a 6 to 11-year-old boy who wants to be a hero. And that is not who I was as an adult, a young adult, but that's who I was as a kid for sure. And I wanted to be a hero. And sometimes the softest folks who want the best for everybody and want the best end up learning to be the hardest people, in order to protect that little 7 to 11-year-old boy or girl. And so once I realized that, that I still contained that little kid, then it really clicked.
Okay, very cool. So I mentioned at the outset that my co-hosts weren't able to make it tonight, and one of them, their name is Ben, and Ben is a huge Destiny fan. He's been a player in the Destiny universe, I think, since day one.
Wow.
They were just very excited about the game, and I came on a little bit later. I not right away. I think I started probably because I'm always a little gun shy on buying games sometimes, and so sometimes I wait for a month to see if other people like it, and hey, does the game suck or should I buy it?
Yeah. It's a commitment. It's an investment.
Absolutely. So yeah, they have been a player, I think, since day one. But we were talking about your character, Amanda Holliday, in Destiny, and they were going to ask you this question, but they're not able to be here tonight. So they're wondering what your thoughts and feelings were on the death of your character, because it's somebody that you have voiced for some time. And spoilers, guys, if you haven't finished Destiny 2 in the Season of Defiance, you're going to find that Amanda Holliday is no longer with us. So rest in peace, Amanda. But you've voiced Amanda for quite some time. So what are thoughts, feelings, and emotions do you go through when you have a death of a character like that you have voiced for so long?
I think if you work in games, you know that eventually you're gonna get killed. I mean, I have a lot of experience with getting killed in games, so I take nothing for granted.
Sure.
So yeah, you're on borrowed time for the most part.
Fair enough.
I wanted more Amanda. I really love that character, and I was happy that they started to explore her background, and I loved what they did with her. The stuff when she is a kid is so beautiful, and that story. I wish that I could have had a longer period of time with it, because I thought she was such a great character, and that character is distinct because she died right around the time that Lance Reddick died. And so I knew that, obviously, I had recorded the stuff, but when I actually saw it, it was really emotional for me because of Lance.
Sure.
It really resonated in a different way, because it wasn't just about the game. It was about the end of kind of an era, for many reasons. So that one was actually, that was a tough one. And they're not ever, easy. I put a lot of love into my characters. And so when I came in for the second Halo Wars game, I came in and I was so excited that Serena was coming back, and I came in and they're like, wah, wah. Well, you're actually coming in to do the prelogue of the prologue, and is that what it's called? Whatever, the intro, and then but you're dead. And I was like, that one was also kind of a gut punch. Because I was really excited to come back and do the second game. And there's a certain director. It was the same director, now that I think about it. Oh my gosh. Kevin McMullen was my director on Halo Wars and in Destiny. So Kevin, if you're watching this, I blame you.
Way to go, Kevin. Way to go.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, I'm sure Ben will love that answer.
He's an amazing director. He just happens to be the guy who's always
He just happens to kill
overseeing me
you.
dying. Yeah. It's a weird coincidence.
Okay. So we talked about this pre-show as well. There was a possibility that we weren't going to be able to sit down and interview tonight because some things going on in the real world with some longtime friends and fellow voice actors of yours. Both Wes Johnson and Mike McFarland have had some pretty serious medical issues and conditions, and they're dealing with lots of things. So how can fans of both Wes and Mike and the work that they've done, with Mike on Dragon Ball Z, and of course Wes with the Fallout series and all the other stuff that they've both done, how can fans help these two guys go through this stuff?
Thank you for bringing that up. I mean, I have to say thank you to the fans and friends who have donated to both of these gentlemen's GoFundMe. They both have, Mike had very sudden brain surgery. Mm-hmm. And Wes Johnson had some kind of medical episode that we're not entirely sure what happened, but he was in the ICU intubated for the better part of a week. And he is on his way home now.
That's awesome.
Medical transport is taking him home as we speak. He may be home already, so that's great. And Mike is doing well. But I think the things that people don't know about voice acting as well is that, we are day players, and our union insurance only comes from us doing a certain amount of work every year. And sometimes if your work falls into a funny section of the year, you could potentially lose your insurance. And so I'm super grateful to say, and I'm not sure, I know that both of these gentlemen will be needing long-term care to recover from these things. And so I'm so grateful to everyone who has donated and sent well wishes on social media. And for both of them, the GoFundMe for Wes Johnson, you can just search his name, Wes, W-E-S, Johnson. And Mike McFarland is Mike MC Farland. Let me make sure. I think it's actually McFarland.
I believe it is
McFarland.
No, it's just MC. It is just MC.
That's right. I got scared. So Mike MC Farland. And if you have appreciated what these guys have done, Dragon Ball Z, Wes Johnson is also the voice for the Washington Capitals. He does announcing for them if you're a sports fan. He's also in Skyrim and many Bethesda games. So if you appreciate what they've done, if you can spare a few bucks and a message, that would be great to go to their GoFundMes. But even if not, just find them on social media. Let them know that you're thinking about them. It means the world to them. They're both great, great dudes. And I know it's, my gosh, living here in Los Angeles, there's a ton of GoFundMes out there. And if you find some, that they're really taken care of at a certain point, you know what? Pass it on. Find an LA fire victims GoFundMe and throw $20 to them. That's what I've been doing, is finding stuff that's been underfunded and trying to give what I can. The world has a lot going on right now. So,
for sure,
do what you can.
Well, what we'll do is we'll put links for both of the fellas' GoFundMes down in the show notes down below, so people can take a check at that. And for those of you who are listening, and if you're concerned that money's tight for you, even as little, she mentioned $20, even as little as $5 a person makes a bigger difference than you really think it does, because you have to remember that's going to get compounded. If I donate $5, she donates $5, you donate $5. It all adds up very, very quickly. And with insurances the way they are and medical bills the way they are these days, that money's going to go very fast. Those fellas are going to need our help. Also, if you can't donate, please at least share the GoFundMes, because you may not be able to donate, but somebody else may be a fan of their work and want to help out as well. So please do that. Please look into that.
And those messages too, I know Wes is
Oh, for
already,
sure.
I think he got shown what was going on, and just letting him know that you appreciate their work and that, or who they are as people, and right now with the world the way that it is, it's so important just to make a connection, and it doesn't have to be about the money. It can just be
Absolutely.
just a hug, a virtual hug, just
Absolutely.
just finding some way to put good into the world. I actually have a foster puppy that's going to be showing up here in about 45 minutes. That is the way that I'm giving back today. So I get to keep him for 2 weeks, and
A little
it's
jealous.
totally not, it's for me. It's totally for me. Cause you know what? Fostering puppies and dogs, older dogs and cats too, is you get back so much more than you ever put in. So there's lots of fosters out there that need your help. For temporary housing for displaced dogs and cats, and you can also do transport for them. So
Yeah,
if you follow anything on social media, you can reach out, ask them, hey, can I come and walk some of the dogs or anything like that? And it will also, it will heal your heart as well. So
absolutely. Great suggestion. All right, Courtney, we are at the point in the show where we have to ask you a silly question. It's really not
okay.
all that silly. We just like to call it a silly question. Now, the reason for the silly question, I always feel it's important to explain this and give it a little bit of context, is my co-host Kathleen and her daughter were out for a walk. Not for a walk, but they were somewhere. They were out and about. Let's put it that way. They were out and about, and her daughter's about 5 or 6 years old. And they were asked, her daughter was asked this question, but they didn't ask it of Kathleen. And we both thought there should never be a time in your life when somebody doesn't ask this or doesn't care to ask this. So, Courtenay Taylor, what's your favorite dinosaur?
Oh, Triceratops.
Yeah.
Triceratops. Yeah, for sure.
Excellent choice. That's my favorite dinosaur as well. So,
Yeah. Ever since I saw, oh my God, now I'm going to have like a goldfish moment. The Disney movie with the dinosaurs.
yeah.
What is it? Not like, of course, there's a couple, but the one with Mickey Mouse, and he's like he's got the little pointy hat on. He's a wizard. You
Oh,
guys,
Fantasia?
Fantasia. Thank you. Yes, ever since I saw Fantasia when I was a little kid, and I was so
Okay.
upset that the dinosaurs were fighting, and like the Triceratops is my girl. Mm-hmm.
Land Before Time. So,
Aww.
yeah.
Yeah. It was very
Yeah.
traumatizing as a child.
Yeah.
I don't
Land
like
Before
it when
Time.
animals
Too
fight.
soon. But yeah, so yeah, when I was a kid, and I still do. I think rhinos are very cool animals, and so to me, when I was a
Yeah.
kid, Triceratops was a triple rhino because of the 3 horns, and so
Of course,
it was like
yeah.
rhino, triple rhino, cool, very cool. So
Yeah, triple cool.
Exactly, triple cool.
Yeah.
All right, Courtney, thank you so much for being on the FSF Popcast today. Exactly. So where can our listeners and viewers go to find out more about you, what work you've got coming up, things that you're promoting?
Okay. I'm not really on Twitter
Okay.
anymore, but I did move over to Bluesky, so I'm on there,
Excellent.
and I'm loving that. And I'm still on Instagram, Courtenay Taylor LA. You do have to remember how to spell my name. It is Courtenay Taylor. There are a few other Courtenay Taylors out there who do different things for work and may not be the content you're looking for. And so yeah, Instagram, Courtenay Taylor LA, Bluesky, just Courtenay Taylor. I also am very excited. I work with another voice actor, JP Karliak, who you guys may know from X-Men.
Yes.
And
We just had him on the show a while ago.
yes, he's one of my best friends, and we started Nerds Vote together, which is nerdsvote.com, which is just reaching out in a nonpartisan way to people at, in the nerdiverse at conventions to make sure that everyone's registered to vote every election, every time, because your voice matters. And so there's a bunch of us voice actors who have decided to promote you using your voice And so we do it through nerdsvote.com. You can check it out at the website. We have cool t-shirts. We have a rogues gallery of your favorite voice actors who also, if you see them at conventions, oftentimes we have kitted them out with swag to give away, patches, cool. Stickers, all that kind of stuff. And you can also check your registration and register to vote and take the pledge to vote if you're not 18 yet. Take the pledge to vote at nerdsvote.com. So you can get all that handled there. And it's something I'm really proud of. And we just got our 501c status. So we'll be doing even more in the next couple of years. So keep an eye out for us. And thank you for supporting us. And
very cool.
Yeah, I think that's it.
All right. Well, I'll make sure that those get down in the show notes down below as well, so that people can check out not only where you're at on socials, Nerdvote, but also where you're at out in the world, so they can follow you and come say hi to you at cons and things along those lines.
Please do. So, yeah, I'm not great at updating my personal website, so I usually don't say this is my name, but on Instagram is generally where I there's too many things, there's too many places you have to update everything. So Instagram is where I announce I'm doing some conventions, so I'm very excited about that. I'll be at the Game On Expo in April. And I have a few more coming up that I will announce. And by all means, come say hi, get some Nerds Vote stickers, show me your tattoos. Awesome. We can fight with lightsabers, whatever. Mm-hmm.
Very cool.
I'll wear your helmet, whatever. I'll steal things from you,
Perfect.
We'll eat a burrito.
Sounds like a grand time.
Yeah.
All right, guys.
My convention experience is a little different than everybody else's experience. You too can hang out and eat tacos with me.
I think I would like your convention experience. All right.
Yes.
All right, guys, if you haven't already, this is a prime time to remind you that subscribing is the single most important thing you can do to help our show continue to grow. Get amazingly awesome guests like Courtney to come on the show, sit down, talk with us, all kinds of nerdy, and just have some fun. So please do that. It's going to help our show grow. It's going to get you some really cool content to be able to listen to and get to know the nerds in your nerdiverses in this pop culture world at a much better level. So subscribe here on YouTube. Check us out on Bluesky, because that's where we like to hang out the most. We do have some other social media accounts, definitely not on X, or Twitter. I don't know why I call it X, because I never do. I always call it Twitter, just because. Well, that's a whole nother story. Anyway, but yeah, check us out on Bluesky. Give us a follow there, and come hang out and have some shenanigans with us. And be sure to check out Courtney's work, and please consider strongly giving to the GoFundMes for the two gentlemen we mentioned earlier, Wes Johnson and Mike McFarland. If you can't donate to those, please at least share those links out so that there's other people. And don't forget just the simple power of a hello and thank you for everything you've done. Let them know you're a fan. You'd be surprised how much a simple hello can brighten somebody's spirit when they're going through some medical things. So, and on that note, I think it's time to say goodbye. So may the force be with you as you continue to live long and prosper. Goodbye.
Copyright 2025 FSF Podcast. Reference to any specific product or entity mentioned on this podcast does not constitute an endorsement or recommendation by FSF Podcast. The views expressed by guests are their own, and their appearance on the program does not imply an endorsement of them or any entity they represent. If you have any questions about this disclaimer, please contact us via email at info@fsfpodcast.com.